A convention is an established way of doing something, understanding something, or presenting something. There are many conventions used in films, and we readily accept them because it is an established way. We get used to it. Whether it is the expectation of a comprehensible narrative within a 2-hour film, or an expectation that the camera will actually point at the actors, the audience relies on oft-repeated and generally accepted codes of meaning. If a visitor from another galaxy plopped down on planet Earth and had never seen a moving picture film, let's say on their planet Edward Muybridge got a desk job and never invented motion sequence, and their version of Thomas Edison drank one too many whiskey sours and napped through his light bulb, and the Lumiere brothers' mom said to stop this far-fetched crazy camera idea. Let's say all that happened and you grabbed our unfortunate visitor, set him down on your futon, and clicked on a feature film. What would happen? How perplexed will our intergalactic visitor become? Instead of sliding quite lubriciously into the fantasy, he would most likely be fraught with tension. The unknown elements of space and time and being would cause not an enjoyable experience, but a constant search for technical meaning. Luckily, we, if human, don't have to experience this. We enter each film always already aware of the prerequisite systems of science. So we relax and take it easy. Enter the famous fourth wall concept of stage productions. In theater and cinema, the viewer is presented with the frame maintenance of 3 walls, and this is where the character's world takes place. The so-called fourth wall is open, and it is the audience's view into that particular world. The audience is willing to suspend logic and realism to temporarily believe in the depicted reality as real. And this propensity stays intact via the unimpairment of the imagined fourth wall. The audience believes in the validity of a secondary reality. All of this is usually unacknowledged by the characters of a film, as well as unacknowledged by the viewer. The function and position of the wall is glossed over, systematically concealed. This is in part due to its conventionality. We have become familiar with it as an established and oft-repeated simulation. Not stimulation. It's the opposite of that. The idea of the fourth wall is an established concealed fiction. So what happens when this convention is broken? In the film Charulata, a 1964 Indian Bengali film by director Satyajit Ray, the protagonist, Charulata, is depicted on a swing in her garden, writing, talking, and singing with them all. Throughout this film and up to this scene and at the midpoint of the film, we have been embedded into Charu's perspective on life by our access to her solitary viewpoints. We can see that she is indeed the lonely housewife, and we have settled into that. By the time we get to Charu on the swing, we have been subtly prepared to dive even deeper into her world. The distance that remains is about to be removed a step further to close the gap between her world and ours. At the beginning of the scene, we are given a mid-shot, or medium perspective of Charu on the swing. We are then presented with a close-up shot of Charulata's head, and the background behind her is moving as if we are positioned in front of her, riding on the swing along with her. This device is not used so much as to jar the viewer into noticing it, but rather to ease them into a closer relationship with Charu's experience of life. The distance has been shortened between the viewer and the secondary reality, converging the 2 states of consciousness into one. It is not so much that Charulata directly addresses the viewer, it is more that the viewer has come closer into her world. The viewer's vision has melded into her reality, is located there on the swing, and that is why we can see the trees in the background as if we are on the swing with her. Charu is singing, and she does look directly into the camera at times, but always with a faraway look in her eye, distracted, as if caught up in her own world. So, we are there, on the swing, participating in Charu's wholly constructed reality, while she is absent-mindedly singing in a preoccupied manner. The dissolution of the fourth wall is a device that defamiliarizes the usual ways of seeing for the viewer, thereby causing something that has become a custom, a trope, an old hat, able to be seen new again. It makes it into art. We are both enraptured and ensconced. That is to say, installed. The viewer's heart and thought are now thoroughly installed in the film, and the second reality has merged with the first. So, the somewhat avant garde camera work and play on perception dissolves the conventional maintenance of the simulated fourth wall and subsumes the viewer into Sharu's world. Notice that after the face-to-face swinging, the next shot is of a mall, where we see him as if our head is turned to the side, or Sharu's head, and it becomes difficult to decipher which perspective this shot is supposed to be adhered to. Are we looking over at a mall from the front of the swing, or is Sharu? It could be either. And this continues to foster the psychological indecipherability between Sharu and the viewer, creating a deeper relation between the two. In just over 120 years of motion pictures, social upheavals have played a part in the dynamics of relationship between audience and film. This results in the exploration of boundaries. Viewers begin to have the opportunity to remove themselves from the category of other and interact with another reality. Yet somewhere in the back of her mind, the viewer understands that directors, writers, producers, that all of these people have carefully constructed the production. There lies the strange paradox of narrative film, the realization that this world is artfully staged, which runs parallel with the sense of belief. We fall into the film nonetheless. In The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, a 1964 French-German romantic musical film directed by Jacques Demy, there's a particular scene where we find ourselves experiencing this falling into effect. In this scene, one of the protagonists, Genevieve, and her mother are located in their dining room as Genevieve grieves the loss of her love, Guy. The mother attempts to console the daughter as Genevieve continues to explain and express her grief. It is important to note that throughout this film, the dialogue is all recitative, which is similar in style to an opera, and this includes all of the film's casual conversation. This operatic device lulls the viewer into a comfortable state of enjoyable distance via the convention of expository song, as the singing signals to us a certain unreality of the event, even as we believe in the reality of the character's world. Even with this convention of distance through song and order, there remains a palpable closeness during the Umbrellas of Cherbourg, a particular sharing of experience that lessens alienation. So when Genevieve breaks the assumed fourth wall and looks into the camera, looks into the eyes of the viewer, that slight distance crumbles and the delineated here or there spaces dissolve. When we look at the scene, we see the camera situated across the dinner table. Our view suddenly shifts to a close shot of Genevieve's face. It is not edited that way. The camera shows the work of moving forward. Genevieve is looking downward. Within a few moments, she looks up and thereby leaps through the mentally constructed wall. What is the effect of this? It would be wise to turn back to our galactic visitor. What if those characters in the movie you decided to show him started looking at him, talking to him? You explain that they are actors, but the whole enterprise would still seem dubious. With the exploration of conventions such as the fourth wall, we begin to see film in a different way, a relic of time that shows what time is irrelevant, and what of space. So we ask again, what is the effect of this? It is possible that this scene is so moving because her gaze dissolves space and reveals time. The viewer is immersed into her reality so convincingly that the viewer realizes that they were never really merely viewing in the first place, rather they were experiencing. A deeper immersion happens when we, as viewers, as experiencers, accept new ways of viewing and experiencing. As film evolves, we become more comfortable with filmmakers and characters who are experimenting with sensations and realities. And when we accept a new way of viewing, it is a new way of being. What was once dense, weighty, self-contained is now free-floating and loose. The weaving of subjectivity between character and viewer creates an ambiguous technical code. We are all of a sudden closer, not so distant. We feel a deeper connection, and it is unexpected. It is also important to note that social upheaval and political personal angst can be felt and shared with the characters in film. Look to Hitchcock's Vertigo. When Jimmy Stewart's psychedelic nightmare comes toward the viewer, it can be said to mirror the unmoored psychological state. It is cyclical. As we have become more comfortable with the crumbling of the fabricated fourth wall, you will notice that the characters have talked to us more and more. They are ready, and we willing. What's next?